Hi, I'm Brad Dacus, President and Founder of the Pacific Justice Institute. Welcome to Back to School Live. Today we have with us some very special guests to help address the issues that you as parents should be deliberating on as we look at what's happening. What can we expect to take place? What are your rights and your students' rights to be able to address these challenges? So to help me do that today, we have some, like I said, two really interesting people. Eric Buehler, thank you so much, Eric Buehler, for being on this program. You've been involved with being proactive in schools. You have a wonderful ministry called Gateways to Better Education. It's a nonprofit ministry committed to positively, proactively impacting public schools and Christians in particular to further a positive influence in public schools. And then, of course, we also have Brenda Lesbeck. Thank you so much, Brenda, for being here. You're a school board member, but much more than a school board member. You have been actively involved in advocating for parents' rights. I know because I've worked with you before, and of course I've worked with you too, Eric. So I'm very familiar with both of you, and I thought you guys would be excellent to be on this program to address some of these challenges, both from a defensive perspective, but also from an offense perspective. And so let's get right on into it with what we're going to talk about today. And what school policies... Actually, let's start this. What should parents know before school starts? Let's start real broadly here. I'll start with you, Eric.
Oh, wow. Well, parents should know a lot of things. One is you should think about the teachers that your kids have, that God's put them in your sphere of influence. And so sometimes parents can look at teachers and schools like restaurants, like, what are you feeding my kids? What's going on? What are you doing for me? But when you look at it in another way, and that is, God has put me in relationship with these teachers, and begin praying for how can I be an influence there? And just look for those open doors. You'll find a lot of teachers don't agree with things that are happening in schools, but they don't know what to do about it. Yeah. And you can be a conduit to help them understand how they can resist.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is I once had a phone call from some grandparents, and they were demonstrating in front of a public school in Elk Grove School District near Sacramento. And they said, students started screaming at us. We had to run for our lives. It was terrible. We didn't know what to do. I said, there's maybe a more effective way of impacting. Like, have you ever thought about volunteering to be a teacher's aide?
Yeah.
And get on the inside.
Yeah.
Which is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like relationships, being an influence instead of being like, so what are you teaching my kids?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like the food you're serving. It's kind of a restaurant sort of thing instead of, hey, how can I help and what can I do? I had a mom call me once. She said, okay, I started out the conversation this way. I want to know how to get a teacher fired. I said, wow, okay, well, what's going on? Well, she's not married. She's single, and now she's pregnant, and the rumor is that her boyfriend has left her, and that's just not right as a demonstration to our children, and I want to get her fired. Well, I knew they weren't going to fire her for that. So I kind of had a long pause, and I said, she must be really scared. And the mom was like, what? I said, here she is, single, pregnant. Praise God she's not having an abortion. You can always talk to your daughter about how this was not a good thing. But God has put you in her classroom for such a time as this. What are you doing to minister to that teacher? And it really changed the perspective of that mom. Yeah. That, I could actually serve someone here and help them and minister to them instead of, how dare you? Yeah. So sometimes you just have to kind of have open hands to what God will do with you in that environment.
Yeah. I love that perspective, because often we just should ask the question, I think, is, how does God see this? How would Jesus see this? Yeah. And Jesus was actually pretty outreaching to those people that the world thought were not abiding by Scripture, doing the wrong things. I mean, he never forsook truth. Yeah. But he reached out to people to take them where they are. And I think that's just a really great example, which you gave right there. That's excellent. Brenda, what do you have to say? What should parents know before school starts?
Well, first of all, they need to know what's coming down from the California Department of Education. And what's coming down is to basically normalize that gender is a choice, that there's many genders to choose from. And this, we're seeing it starting in kindergarten, in many of the books.
Kindergarten.
Coming into the library.
I want to be really
Yes.
clear. You said
Even preschool.
even
Yes.
preschool in
TK.
public schools across the state of California, but then there's other states as well, blue states in particular, pushing this. And I understand that even school districts in red states have been caught doing this, like Dallas, Austin, Houston, other school districts as well. So this is a national problem, but in California is just one example of how it can go all the way down to the kindergarten level,
Yes.
and parents often don't even know about it.
I mean, I can show you some examples.
Please, yeah, show us some examples.
This book
We're not promoting these books, folks, okay? These are
This
bad books. Okay.
is actually with a lesson plan demonstration from the California Department of Ed in their health framework that was passed in 2019. Okay, and this looks very sweet. Who are you? But when you look at it, basically, it says, some people say there are only two choices for gender, male and female, but there's actually many choices. And it's using the word choices. It says, I am a girl, a boy, both, neither, or just me. And if you look at the pictures here, this is about a 2 or 3 year old, maybe a 5-year-old, 6, 7, 8. So this is primary grades.
Yeah.
You know, so they're planting the opportunity for confusion and doubt,
100%.
which we as children, that was never even a concept. We
right.
knew that we were a boy. Boys at 18 months understand they're like dad, not like mom.
Right.
It's very young. And then parents, affirm that. But now we have massive confusion. People wonder why. This is one of the reasons why, because they're actually aggressively indoctrinating our children at a very young age.
Yes, and a lot of people don't realize that in the LGBTQ, that the Q stands for queer, but also for questioning.
Yeah.
So once a 5-year-old child reads a book like this and starts wondering, of course, well, I'm questioning, I'm not really sure, then they are identified as a Q. And once they're identified as a Q, that means they get put into the resources such as counselors, mental health for LGBTQ. So this one says, and for some people, there are more than just two choices. I have to read it like this. There are just a few words people use: transgender, queer, non-binary, gender fluid, transgender, gender neutral, agender, neutroid, bigender, third gender, two-spirit, and there's even more words people are using to describe their experience called the gender spectrum.
Wow.
So that's a lot.
Now, before all your
Yes.
viewers panic, what I always suggest is, as I said, as you get to know the teacher, have a meeting with the teacher. This is what we did when our kids were in elementary school. And find out about them and ask them specifically, hey, are you going to be using books like this? You'll find some teachers will say, over my dead body. And you'll find others who go, well, we want to create an inclusive environment.
And you have other teachers that may lie.
Yes.
Oh, no. We're never, no. And then you find out later on they did. I like to say it doesn't happen, but we at Pacific Justice Institute,
Yeah.
we've seen it happen,
Yes,
unfortunately.
that's true. But unless you have that conversation, in other words, don't go into the system assuming that everyone is the devil.
Absolutely. And
right.
that is true.
Good point.
It's also good to know that the teachers union, since I was a state delegate for the union, they incentivize teachers
How?
to be activists. Well, we have a lot of conferences and we have a lot of awards. So I actually applied for an award because I was trying to advocate for the immigrant community, because the California Department of Ed, actually when they did the health framework and they had 60 days of community input where you could, say, hey, we agree with this, don't agree with that. I said, they wouldn't provide the document, which was about 300 pages, in Spanish. They only provided it in English. And I said, well, you're excluding our immigrant non-English speaking community in the state of California, which is immense. And so, I put in a, hey, I did this, I advocated for my community, but no. They only award the people that are following and aligned with their agenda, which is this
Yeah.
gender confusion. So I would say I have a few little litmus tests that I use and this that I give to parents. I say, first of all, look at the teacher, how they sign out. Do they have pronouns under their name?
Yes.
If they have pronouns under their name in their emails or in their introductory letters during back to school night, they're probably an activist, or they're definitely gender affirming in these
So when they
the
sign
gender spectrum.
when they sign their name, if they put she, her,
Yes.
slash, or she slash her, or whatever, that's a sign.
That's a sign.
Okay.
Another sign is when you go to back to school night, you look at the posters on the walls. You look at, what they have out as far as what's in their library. They're usually teachers have their own little library. And you look at those books that are on display.
Yep.
And that'll be very well telling. And then I think parents should always, and you can deal with this better than I, but since we do have the Mahmoud versus Taylor, parents need to be informed about their rights and say, okay, well, do the teachers know that they must notify me if they're ever going to be reading a book or instructing kids on any of these issues that may go against my religious beliefs? They need to notify me so I can opt my child out.
Yes. In fact, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because I think one of the most important things that people watching this need to know is they need, if they have their kids in public schools, which I call spiritual death camps right now. That's my terminology. Now, it's a broad generalization. I get it, okay? But parents need to use opt-out forms. We at Pacific Justice Institute, folks, we have opt-out forms that you can utilize. They're free. They're without charge. We are updating these all the time, especially because of Mahmoud versus Taylor. Take advantage of this on our website, pji.org. And also, I'd greatly appreciate it if you would hit the like and subscribe button on our YouTube. That would be very, very helpful for the YouTube channel. And we also have pji.org there. And if you have any questions, you can call us at 916-857-6900. We're here for you 24/7, folks. So we're going to talk about a lot of issues. We're going to continue talking about more issues. But we've got great resources, including the opt-out form. If you have your children in public schools, it is, in my opinion, parental neglect if you do not utilize the opt-out form to protect your child from things that you don't want your child exposed to make sure that they're not impacted in ways that you would object to. Take advantage of this. This is really important. pji.org. And once again, I'd greatly appreciate if you would hit the like and subscribe button there on our YouTube channel. So, all right, getting back to our discussion. That was an excellent point about the opt-out, because parents, now let me ask you, some parents, they want to wait until maybe midway through the year, wait till there's a problem, wait till there's something that they object, then they're going to do the opt-out. What's wrong with that?
Because you never know when it's going to happen. Let me give you an example of what happened this year. I had a parent call me, and this was a 5th grade class. They went on a field trip, and I guess the teacher... See, another thing is parents shouldn't assume that the teachers and the people who have access to their students have been notified about Mahmoud versus Taylor. Many teachers are not even aware of it because the districts aren't training them, and they're not telling the parents, they're not telling the teachers or the staff. So parents need to know. But 5th grade class, the teacher said, you can change your gender, it can be fluid. So some of the girls wanted to test it out. They went on a field trip, and some of the girls said, well, we believe we're gender fluid, so during the field trip, we want to use the boys' bathroom. So he announced in the bus, well, these girls are going to use the boys' bathroom during this field trip, and apparently there were no volunteers on this field trip. They didn't allow parent volunteers for whatever reason.
Wow.
On that field trip to a university. But so that's what they did. And then they came back, and then the girls thought it was a joke and giggled about it. But one of the girls came back and told the parent about it and said, I'm really confused. What's going on? Girls can use boys' bathrooms now. And, the parent felt very blindsided.
Yeah.
Like, why wasn't I ever told? And, I talked to my superintendent about that, being a board member. And I said, this is obvious to me that we are not telling our teachers. They think that they can pretty much say whatever they want and not be responsible for it. And that was a violation right there of Mahmoud versus Taylor.
Yeah. And I want to encourage people out there to contact us If you find yourself in a situation where you've opted your child out, it's not being respected. If a boy goes in your daughter's locker room, and you have these kind of situation, or a girl is competing in a boys' sport when your daughter's there, contact us, folks, because we have over 140 cases in active litigation, and we've got a lot of room for more cases, especially dealing with these issues. Yeah. This is low-hanging fruit. We have a Supreme Court that has already pretty much made it pretty clear where they're going with these issues. It's the most parents' rights friendly Supreme Court, I believe, in my lifetime, maybe in U.S. history. So
praise God.
This is an awesome time to be on the offensive, and I really love what you're saying.
And
there.
the idea of taking offense, this is where a parent meeting with the teacher within the first week or two of school, and even bringing the Mahmoud case and bringing the opt-out form and just saying, hey, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but here's what we've done. We've opted out of this. And by the way, are you familiar with the Mahmoud case? And
I thought it was really interesting and real important, a major case, and then you give
exactly.
it to them.
And you use that relationship to inform the teacher, who's probably not being informed by the district or by their union, of course. And so the parent can be the bearer of good news, of truth, and tell them. And you might find a teacher go, wow, I didn't know that. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
I think that's a great point, Eric. And I think also if parents, because they do have access to the PTA or the PTO, also to a
Parent Teachers Association or
Parent Teacher Organization.
Okay, gotcha.
And also to School Site Council, which is really important, a monthly meeting that they can have on their school site.
What you said, School Site
School
Council.
Site Council.
Explain that.
Yeah, the School Site Council has a lot of influence, and basically it's a team that every district has a budget, but also every school has a budget. So the School Site Council is the one that is determining how to use those funds for that particular school. They're also, determining a lot about, anything that's specific to that school, to kind of customize it for their neighborhood. So those are great places to inform other parents about Mahmoud versus Taylor, because the parents need to be informing parents right now, because we're not doing it should be top down, but it's not happening. So it needs to be bottom up. And, till we get more board members in there making it, it's happening. It's starting to happen in my district now.
Yeah. I love that idea. They can have copies of Mahmoud versus Taylor, maybe even a summary of it they could possibly provide. I like to remind people of your approach, which I think is really good.
Very good.
So they can come in and saying, well, I want you to know, I've got here a copy of Mahmoud versus Taylor. I know my rights, and I'm going to give this to everyone. And folks, we don't have to put up with. That's one approach. The other is, hey, folks, I have something very, very important. It's a copy of the case of Mahmoud versus Taylor. I know we all want to make sure that our school does not get in trouble in any way. We have enough troubles, to deal with, with all the things going on in schools. So I went ahead. I got copies of this to help make sure that we're all informed about this. And it's a very important case, and just hand it out with a smile on your face. Yeah. I say keep the smile on the face. It really helps to soften what you're doing. So
Absolutely.
You might also network with other Christian parents in that school. You might find, I know this person. Well, then you ask that person, who else do you know? And you create a list, and this becomes your team.
Yes.
And you can inform one another, and you can text each other back and forth, and you're not alone.
Right.
Yeah,
there are so many Christians in the public schools, but we all kind of sometimes seem real isolated. What's
interesting is a parent, an approach that they often will do when a parent makes any kind of complaint about something, is the teachers are programmed to say, really, you're the only parent that brought this up.
Right. To make them feel so alone.
Yeah, that is their strategy. And in reality, we've caught them doing this. And the parent says, well, no, actually, I know of other parents that have brought this up.
Yeah.
But that's what they're trained to do, because they think, well, the parents really aren't connecting and communicating. So I love that.
Yeah.
Develop those relationships, not just with the teacher, but also with other parents. That's a great point.
I do want to mention real quick, because I know he mentioned Christian parents. I'm actually a founder of the Interfaith Statewide Coalition, because I saw that it's not just Christians, It's Muslims, Orthodox Muslims. It's Orthodox Jews, Orthodox Catholics. I say Orthodox because we have a lot of splits in this area, even in Christianity, when it comes to, believing that God created us male and female, believing that marriage is between a man and a woman. For the Orthodox faiths, we hold these values unified. We hold these things in common. And where I believe right now with ethnic studies and the way they want to divide us, they want to put us into silos in order so that we can't organize and unify.
Yeah.
And actually, this is one subject where we can. And even it's funny because the Mahmoud versus Taylor, it's supposed to be a religious exemption, right? But there's a lot of atheists and agnostics that say, I don't want my kids learning this either. Even gay parents that say, I don't want my kids learning that they can choose their gender. And I'm like, well, you better pick a religion quick then and fill out Mahmoud versus Taylor.
Well, good point. Here's the good news
Okay.
for the atheists and the agnostics out
Okay.
there. The Supreme Court will give the same protection if they have deeply held convictions. So the
There
equivalent
you
of
go.
Thank
religious
you.
beliefs.
Okay.
So they've got protection. And
Thank
also,
you.
and I'm really glad you mentioned other faiths as well, because the reality is we have seen a huge spike of anti-Semitism in public schools. We at Pacific Justice had to take on the Santa Barbara Unified School District on behalf of a young Jewish girl that could not go to class because of this massive pro-Hamas mob of students fueled by, we believe, by the school teachers and the radical teachers in that school district. We had to bring an action, and make a long story short, we prevailed. The girl was able to go to class safely. But so I think it's real important to be sensitive, but also like you say, to recognize that we have a lot in common when it comes to basic values and
Yes.
parents' rights concerns.
Well, Mahmoud was Muslim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a Muslim
And-
family.
Yeah. Point blank. Yeah, that's right.
And I love turning the language, the terminology back on them. You don't want to marginalize these communities, do you? And because they're always about, well, we don't want to marginalize people. Oh, well, you're
Yes.
marginalizing these Jewish and Muslim Christian communities. Oh, I never thought about it that way.
Yeah,
What
I
about
like-
inclusion and diversity,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Yeah, so when we took on a school district, I think it was in Petaluma or Santa Rosa, and I remember dealing with the school district, and the terminology I used is, I said, you don't want to cram one ideology into these children from a very narrow-minded perspective. You want to be, sensitive to the wide diversity. And be inclusive of the wide spectrum of different perspectives, and you don't want to be discriminatory in any way towards any parent in a school district.
Yeah.
So it really works well to use that language to let them realize the hypocrisy that they
Yeah.
Absolutely.
they're
And
The
actually
double speak.
It's really, I call it an ideology colonization. They'll criticize the colonists who came from England to America for trying to convert the Native Americans into Christianity. But if you look back, those people thought they were doing the right thing. They were doing a good thing to help civilize these uncivilized people. Well, that's exactly what's happening today. There are certain those in the public schools who are like, we need to civilize these children and these families. They're on the wrong side of history, and so we're going to correct that. And it's really bringing in almost a colonial perspective of this is the truth, and they feel like they're doing the right thing.
Yes.
But if you look back on it, really, you're just forcing this on people because they're in a public school environment. They can't leave, and so therefore you're going to create this ideology that you want them to believe, and yet they feel like they're doing the right thing. But it's really a form of thought colonization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it starts in the colleges
Oh,
who
yeah.
create our teachers, train our teachers, who then train
Yeah.
our students. I do want to mention one thing about the Mahmoud versus Taylor, because as a board member, we are being instructed by the California school districts, public school districts, are being told that it only applies to elementary school. Now, Brad, I know that you said no, that is not the case. So I am, and I know you are, encouraging parents that, okay, don't just limit that opt-out form to elementary. Take it to middle school and high school. And then when your school district, and I guarantee you they will, not honor it, when they don't honor it and you get blindsided, you're not notified, then go to Brad Dacus, and he's looking for plaintiffs. The thing about it, though, here's the thing. Once your kid goes into middle school, a lot of times the communication starts breaking down. They start not telling their parents as many things going on.
Right.
And keep that communication open with your child. Let them know, hey, I opted you out of these things. Have a really good talk so they are with you, on board with you, understand, so that they will tell you when these things happen in the class, because they can't use cell phones in the class anymore, which, that's a pro and a con. Because, yes, we don't want them to be distracted while they're getting instruction. But when you have these rogue teachers, what's their defense mechanism? They can't record them anymore. But I don't know. You have those Meta glasses you can purchase?
Well, and the other thing, too,
Meta
is...
pens, too.
Meta pens, too. Okay, I got to stay up with this. That's good.
When your student comes home, oftentimes parents will say, well, how did your day go? Oh, I'm fine.
Fine.
Right.
But what you should say is, what'd you learn today? How'd it go in this class? What was the topic? And also, you need to, as a parent, read the books they're reading, read the textbooks, find out what they call scope and sequence. What's the scope of this course? What are the topics you're going to cover? What's the sequence in which you'll cover it? And then take a look at that. And if anything seems to pop up at you, then do a little deeper dive, meet with the teacher. And say, hey, tell me more about what you're going to be doing here.
It gets a little tricky because a lot of our books are going paperless, so they're going on the Chromebooks, and sometimes on the Chromes, the kids have passwords. And sometimes the parents, like in secondary education, they may not have those passwords. And, a lot of them, they're not going to go through their Chromebook. But, those are just some
Well, they need to. That's the thing that parents need to address is
we start
want access to this.
Asking parents and asking teachers, I want to see a hard copy of that textbook.
Right. Yeah. Parents need to understand that they have a right to review all the curriculum.
Yes.
They have a right to have access to all outside speakers and presentations. I know we took out actually one school district in the southern part of the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, where, I think it was San Jose actually, where they decided to bring in Planned Parenthood. But they didn't give the parents the proper notice. I think it's at least 10 days.
14.
Or 14, thank you, 14 days notice. And because they didn't, we were able to call them out. And we brought an action, and it went viral. The parents all found out about it. They completely canceled the presentation. But parents have a right to know this information, but they can get this information on their own. Something else we've also noticed. So parents will say, hey, I want to look at the curriculum. They'll say, okay, yeah, you need to come in today between 1 and 2 p.m. Well, the parent says, well, I work.
Right.
Well, I'm sorry, but that's the only time we really have available for that, 1 to 2 p.m. Wrong. They have to accommodate parent schedules, their time frame.
That's a good point.
They can't just limit it in a way that makes it practically impossible for parents to look at the material. The parents need to review the curriculum, all the information, and really be informed.
Yeah. And it's important also, on the other side, to make sure you're teaching your students to be discerning. Don't just, you're not just a sponge absorbing whatever the teacher's saying. We had this with one of our daughters. We were concerned about the sex education unit that they were going to have in health class. And so we sat down with the teacher and we talked to her about our concerns and what she was going to be teaching. And at that time, this was a few years ago, it was okay. And we thought, all right, she's going to handle this right. But we just had a vibe that she was probably pro-abortion, pro-choice. And so came home to our daughter and we said, I think you'll be okay. You're not going to be embarrassed about anything. But she might really advocate abortion. And so lean into that. Think about that. We want to ask you, have you seen any signals of what she's saying? Well, what was so great about that was every night at dinner, our daughter would say, we'd say, well, what did the teacher say today? Do you think there was any kind of leaning toward pro-choice stuff? And no, I didn't. I saw, she said this, but it wasn't that. And we were teaching her to think while she
Yes.
was listening, not just
Yes.
absorb it, but to be discerning. And that's what you can do with your kids. You have these intentional conversations about what they may be learning in this course. Look for this in the teacher. This was when one of our daughters was dealing with the topic in the politics was gay marriage. And this teacher was talking about it and said, "And I don't want to hear anybody say they're against gay marriage." Our daughter came home, told us about that. We said, okay. So we contacted the teacher and we said, sometimes kids can say the wrong things, that they misinterpret what was said in the classroom, but here's what our daughter said, you said in the classroom. And that really sounds like bullying. I mean, you're in a position of power and you're telling the kids you can't talk about your opposition to gay marriage. And the teacher was like totally backed off. "Oh man, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean that," and so forth. But whether the teacher meant it or not,
They got caught.
our daughter realized, I can stand up to this.
That's right.
I don't have to buy into what the teacher's telling me. And so it's really about helping your kids be discerning, and by having to actually live out their faith and think about their faith while they're learning, it'll help them graduate stronger.
Yes.
Yeah.
Another great tool that parents should take advantage of is apologetics and
Yeah.
apologetics material. And I'm not saying
Yes,
they need to learn how
100%.
learn how to apologize. So it's quite the opposite. When I first
Yes.
heard it, I thought, "What's this apologizing for?" No, but apologetics, where they learn basically logically, analytically, why truth makes sense.
Yeah.
Whether it's the existence of God, whether it's Jesus risen from the dead, the logic of there being absolute truths.
Yes.
And truth cannot be just what you say it is and what I say it is, and we all have our own opinions of truth. And but it's very constructive, and there's great resources out there.
Yeah.
So we're not going to go deeply into this, but I do encourage parents,
Yeah.
go online and say apologetics material for children, say the age, say the grade level. Folks, this is something you can take advantage of.
Yeah.
And your children need this. And you may say, "Well, my child's not going to want to read apologetics or want to listen to apologetics or see a video on the Truth Project or something." Maybe you might want to reward them. So I tell you what, it's your choice. You don't have to if you don't want to. It's your choice. But I'll pay you $10 for each of these apologetics things you go through. And after each one, I'm going to ask you some questions and talk about it. But I want you and a lot of kids will say, "Yeah, I want to make it easy, $5, $10. I don't know what the going rate is now for reading a book, but maybe I'm out of date here."
Well, like Frank Turek said, a lot of students are talked out of their faith because they were never talked into their faith.
Oh,
Bingo.
Good.
Yeah.
and I
very
like
well
Frank
said.
Turek.
Yeah.
He's great, and a really great book that he wrote, which I've used before for evangelism. It's I don't have enough faith to be an atheist.
Yeah.
Don't have
No.
faith to be an atheist. Excellent book. There's another one about God that Lee Strobel just came out with about does God exist, or along that lines. It's very well written.
Don't assume that just because your kids are going to the youth group that they're all in.
Yeah, all it takes is for them to go to college, and if they don't have a foundation of why they know what they believe, why do they believe this? Because these youth groups will tell them, this is what to believe, this is what the Bible says, but they won't have the underlying reasoning of why. And
Yeah.
that's really important. I agree 100%.
And ask them, hey, do you have any questions? Any things that have kind of just, you're not sure about? Because I'm happy to answer them. I don't have all the knowledge, but Christianity's been around for over 2,000 years, and I'm happy to do some research for you and with you, and we'll find the answers to your questions.
Yeah, I think PragerU also puts out a lot of great materials, videos for
yes.
even young kids.
Excellent.
And I know I have 4 grandkids, so I think they're wonderful resources. The cartoons on whether it be for younger kids or intermediate kids.
We would do that
Excellent.
Over dinner. We'd pull up our iPad and we'd, hey, pick a topic, and then we'd watch it
Yeah.
at dinner, and then there's wonderful conversations.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's PragerU is fantastic.
Yeah, it's
And,
a great resource.
Yeah, fantastic resource. In fact, I know Dennis Prager, he spoke at one of our big Celebration of Justice galas, and I just soaked it all in.
Yeah.
He's just fantastic. And in fact, speaking of our Celebration of Justice event, it's coming up on October the 17th, just FYI. And we have Fox News' Emily Campagno. We have Ray Comfort, Todd Starnes. It's going to be a great event. Just saying. Just saying.
that's
October
great.
17th, folks. You can find out information on our website. All right. So, parents, they often, one of the biggest constraints that parents have in filing a complaint or addressing something with the school or a teacher is that there's going to be retribution against their child. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to parents and they say, this XYZ happened, this is terrible, terrible. And I've complained about it and they're not doing anything about it. I said, well, would you like us to represent you? They go, oh, no. They'll bring retribution against my child. And so we took on recently, this should be very encouraging to parents out there who are thinking this way. We took on a case out of Texas. It's a suburb of Waco, Texas. I don't even think Waco's big enough to have a suburb, but they do. Marlin, and we filed a lawsuit on behalf of parents who filed complaints at public meetings because the graduation ceremony was canceled. And then what we found out is the parents were wrongfully removed from the meeting, which is illegal unless they're threatening or something. But then we found out that the superintendent, as we alleged in our complaint, himself manipulated the final grades of the students, of the parents who filed their complaint. One of them was the valedictorian who was no longer the valedictorian. He was caught. And anyway, we filed a major lawsuit. And I'm pleased to say the jury just this year came down with the verdict. It was a $7.5 million judgment
Wow.
against, most of it, not against the school district. Most of it was against the superintendent in his personal capacity.
Wow.
So we sent a loud signal to school districts across America. You bring any retribution against children, we're going to come after you. And
Yeah, because we have laws about retribution
exactly
to protect
the kids. And we have
kids,
37 offices coast to coast, Brenda, as you know. I mean, we're all over the country. My goal is to make sure that Satan has no place to go for vacation, including the public schools and school boards. So
Love it.
I want parents to be encouraged. But that is a common problem, isn't it? As parents fearful that their child indirectly or directly is going to somehow be punished, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and be called a bully and a transphobe or anything else. The fact is we do have students who identify as transgender or different sexual orientations in our schools, and it's getting younger and younger. And so I think parents also, in fact, I don't know if you're familiar with Bernadette Broyles, but she just put out a document called How Churches Can Handle, it's a transgender guide for churches and also for parents to know how to deal with these situations because they're going to have friends, in their classes that are identifying as transgender. And so they have to, we're not here to bully anybody or to, people can be whoever they're going to be, but we still have our parental rights to say that this is not the way I want my child to be taught in this belief system. I think it's also important that parents know going into this school year that we had a law that is now, a couple of them actually, but one is that we now have menstrual products in our third grade boys' bathrooms in all elementary schools. And if a school fails to do this, they're going to be penalized financially. So they're doing it. They're not just putting them in the nurse's office or in the all-gender bathroom. They have to specifically go in the boys' bathroom, at least one per school. And this is a form of social engineering. I mean, it's a form of normalizing something that's not biologically possible, because if you're saying boys can menstruate, then that means boys can have birth. Birth. And that's why they changed the word mom, to birthing persons.
Right. It's biologically confusing.
Yes.
And it's also identity confusing.
Absolutely.
As well. And that's what they want to do. They want to precipitate confusion. Everyone knows, including the radical left, they know this is not biological. They know it's psychological. It's a mental condition. And instead of having it addressed as such, they want to increase the confusion. I thought there was an interesting study that showed that the overwhelming majority of children who have gender confusion, if just simply left alone, no counseling at all, just left alone, will outgrow it by the time they finish high school. They won't have
one of those kids.
Okay, right, okay.
Yeah.
And back then we had tomboys and we had guys who played the violin or whatever. I mean, I don't know what the stereotypes are, but more insecurity. I don't know. They couldn't play good at sports. I wasn't good at sports for that matter. Okay, but that's why I joined the speech debate team. So, but nonetheless, we worked through our insecurities. Young people all have insecurities, instead, what the left of is they want to take advantage of these insecurities.
Absolutely.
And they want to tell boys in 7th grade, well, if you're, looking at other boys and comparing yourself in the locker room, that means you're gay.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It means they're a normal boy whose body's changing and they're comparing themselves with other boys.
Yes.
Yeah.
So these deceptions, and they're using and taking advantage of our young people in these situations, and parents need to be aware of that.
One of the things, too, and what parents can do is teach their children a proper definition of tolerance. We've got an article on this, and it's we think of tolerance today now being just acceptance. Just the more things you accept, the more tolerant you are. But actually what students are responding to is they're just kind of like, yeah, whatever. It's indifference. And what we point out is, no, think of in mathematics, we talk about standard deviations. You have a standard, and you have allowable deviations, and then beyond that, it's intolerable. And we actually live, that's the practical way we live. For instance, in class, a teacher might say, hey, my standard is I want you all to be engaged, listening, engaged in conversation, discussion, raising questions. My allowable variation is you can be quiet. You don't have to say anything. My justifiable intolerance is you can't fall asleep. And so that's how we really live our lives.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Conversations between boys and girls at school. You can say the standard is that you'd be pleasant, fun, engaging, respectful. Variations, you can say silly, stupid things to each other. What's unacceptable, what is intolerable is sexual harassment or bullying. Can't do that. So that's how we really live our lives. But what it does is it causes parents and students to discuss, what is our standard on this? What is our biblical standard on this? And then what are the allowable variations? And even if something is intolerable, I still have to reflect the love of Jesus, kindness, respect, restraint. I don't have to agree with it. I don't have to support it. But now I'm thinking. I'm not just, hey, whatever. It's just, who cares?
Yeah, and to pray for that child. And,
Yeah.
And, I know our society and a lot of churches and Christians in general have often, we look at someone a man dressed like a woman or whatever, and we just go, this is disgusting. This person is messed up. They're perverted. They're trying to do, and we don't really understand. No, this person is hurting.
Yeah.
They're mentally, emotionally. This is what the studies show. Mm-hmm. I talked to one major activist who will remain nameless, who's a gender confused person, I think is a more accurate term. And even he acknowledged, he says, people have this procedure done and they think they're going to cure their mind. He says, no, they don't cure their mind of mental pain and mental anguish. It actually gets worse.
Yes.
And I think we as Christians, we need to have a heart of looking at these people. If they're blind, they're confused.
Yeah.
Statistically, the large percentage of them have been abused sexually. And they're trying to escape to be a different person from that person over here who's wounded and abused.
Yes.
So I love that perspective of having a true Christian attitude, which is wanting to reach out to people, reach out where they are, and not be sucked into the deception that somehow this is biological, somehow this is normal, and actually giving kids the statistics. Here's what the stats are of people who go down this track. Something else I would love to see to be produced, and I know we at Pacific Justice would love to help to produce it, would be a film project for kids in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, talking about what are the differences between a male and a female, not just reproduction, but all the differences, like the brain and how the brain functions. Women can see twice as many shades of color than men, and how our muscle, skeletal structure, advantages, linear thinking versus multiple thinking. I mean, there's so much out there that if children were simply taught, here's all the differences of how a boy and girl are different, then they will sort of discard the whole myth that somehow they can change it by cutting off body parts and getting an injection. And I think this kind of proactive education is something I would love to see precipitated. I don't see it presently out there. So
we need it more in the churches, I think, as well, for sure.
Oh, yeah, and the churches can use it for their 7th grade, 8th grade Sunday school classes. They can give parents notice of it. But it's called truth, and truth is the best weapon for deception and falsity, in my opinion.
100%. I want to mention one thing because I think Eric brought up a good point about, the differences and knowing where we cross a line. And when you mention sexual harassment, words are important because they're basically changing the definition of what sexual harassment is. Teachers have to go through a training of mandated reporters and sexual harassment. But sexual harassment, according to the state of California, is using the wrong pronouns. Okay? So, I mean, and when you're looking at pronouns here, this is for kindergartners. We have ze, them, they, them, zer, and they even have another one that has tree as a pronoun. There's just a million pronouns out there. It's not just she and he.
As a legal question,
Yeah.
as a legal question, when the Supreme Court looked at the Jehovah Witnesses who didn't want to say the Pledge of Allegiance, in the 1940s or 50s, I think it was, one of the things they said was you can't force somebody to say something that goes against their deeply held religious beliefs.
Right.
And yet we're doing that. So
Yeah.
is there any kind of legal challenge on that would say we can't force you to use their preferred pronouns because we're now telling you what you must say as opposed to
Actually, and that's a hot political issue.
Yeah.
We've actually addressed that in a case out of Michigan for an older woman who worked for a medical clinic, and she was told, you need to now stop using he for this person and use she and change name. She said, look, to me, that is blasphemy against the Creator. I will not do that because of my love for the Lord. Now, what I can do, and we encourage people to be as accommodative as possible, I will try not to use any pronouns.
yeah.
And I'll refer to them by their last name, respectfully. And they said, of course, the employer said, oh, no, that's not good enough. You, with your mouth, have to affirm what you believe basically is a lie and blasphemy. She said, I can't do that. So of course, what do? We file a lawsuit. And in the same way, and with regard to public schools, if there's a child out there who's being told, no, you have to use these pronouns, you have to use this new name, those parents should contact us immediately.
Okay. Did you win that, by the way?
Oh, yes.
Oh, good.
Oh, yes.
That's an important
By God's grace,
point.
yes. And we actually have we have the highest win rate in the last 2 years than we have had since our inception in 1997. God is on the move.
Wow.
He is blessing our cases like never before. The largest judgments
Wow.
in the last 2 years than we've seen in the last almost 30 years.
That's awesome.
That's great.
So we've got a lot of exciting things happening. God's granted a lot of favor in our courts, large part because of the appointments made by President Donald Trump during his first term. So I want people to be encouraged.
Yes.
And now,
Yes.
also before we move on, I want to mention a very valuable resource, and that is our book, Reclaim Your School. You can download it for free right now on our website, pji.org. pji.org. Reclaim Your School. We also have another one called Your Rights on Campus. These are for college students, Christian college students on university campuses. It's very, very empowering. And we have another resource called 12 Steps to Protect Your Child from CPS, or social workers. This app applies to all 50 states. Every parent that has children should have a copy of this.
Wow.
Because when a social worker knocks on your door, it's too late to download this. You need to have this and know exactly how to respond when they knock on your door or they call you to investigate. And it can happen to anyone at any time. And the biggest problem is that parents say, well, that's for parents who are drug addicts or whatever. We're great parents. We have nothing to fear. They're the most vulnerable. So anyway, I just want to encourage you to take advantage of those on our website, pji.org, pji.org. Okay, let's open up for some questions now. A good one. Could you explain in more detail Mahmoud versus Taylor and where parents can find a copy of that case's decision to learn more? That's a great point. It's available online. You just can put in the case. I use ChatGPT also for that matter. I use it a lot now. I'm lazy. But you say, I want a copy of the case of Mahmoud versus Taylor, and where can I find it? They'll refer it to you. But I will just summarize it in a nutshell. What happened, it was dealing with a Muslim family in Maryland, and the school district had these books, pro-LGBTQ, propaganda kind of books they're reading to kids. The parents complained and said, we don't want our child exposed to this. Mm-hmm. And the school district says, okay, all right, so we'll accommodate you and everything. Then the school district came back And they said, we have this stuff all throughout our curriculum. It's just going to be too big of a burden to opt your child out of all this material, LGBTQ material about queers and stuff. So we can't accommodate you. And a lawsuit was filed. It went all the way to the Supreme Court. Making a long story short, Supreme Court said, in fact, what one of the Supreme Court justices said when they made that argument, they said, so let me get this right. So you're saying you're violating parents' rights so much, so voluminously, that you can't respect parents' rights. Is that really what your argument is? So the Supreme Court says the volume of it is no excuse. You have to accommodate parents' rights. And if parents say, I don't want my child exposed to this, in terms of literature, films, lectures, whatever. Assemblies, you have to comply with that request. You have to accommodate that parent. It is a huge game changer. It smashes through state laws in California, New York, Oregon, Washington, Illinois. A major bombshell in favor of the rights of parents over their children in public schools. Something else that's happening right now for parents who are concerned about vaccines. States like California, they basically say, hey, any vaccine that was developed up to the year 2015, we can make parents required to have those vaccines for their children, and there's no religious exemption. No religious exemption. And we have that also. It's also in New York. Supreme Court recently looked at a decision that came up. It was an Amish case where the Amish says, hey, we want to opt our kids out based on religious grounds. Federal District Court says, no, there's no exemption under state law. Tough. Second Circuit said, that's right. Too bad. Tough. Went to Supreme Court. Supreme Court says, we're negating, canceling out the opinion of the Second Circuit, and we're sending it down to that federal district judge, and we want them to rehear this case in view of our Mahmoud versus Taylor case, the one I just talked about. And what that is a blinking signal saying, you either reverse this, or we're going to force you to reverse your decision and respect the rights of parents. In my opinion, how this is going to turn out. It's not guaranteed, but the odds are greater than not they're going to decide that parents have a right to opt their children on religious grounds out of any vaccine, absent a compelling state interest. I think that's how it's going to turn out. And it's going to be very, very impacting as well. So stay tuned. All right, another quick question here. Are public schools in every state required to give parents access to curriculum materials? If so, what legal authority should parents cite? Mahmoud versus Taylor, PPRA, state law, or something else? The answer is yes. Parents have a right in all 50 states to review school curriculum and materials before their child's exposed to it. And you want to use our opt-out form because that encapsulates Mahmoud versus Taylor, but also other rights. And in fact, what we've done, folks, is we didn't just provide a generic opt-out form. What we did is we customized it for each state, almost every state, so that we look at the state statutes and state case law. And those protections, in addition to the federal statutory protections and constitutional case law protections. So we've gone overboard to maximize your rights as much as possible with our opt-out forms. You can get them for free on our website right now at pji.org. Excellent question.
Great.
Let's get another one. My 9-year-old's only available, public school teacher, openly supports LGBT ideology. What can I do practically to protect my child from instructions that conflicts with our religious beliefs? So I'm going to bring that back to you guys. What do you think? What do you think, Brenda?
Well, I think, first of all, this is a perfect example to test out the Mahmoud versus Taylor, okay? Because here, this child is that's your only option, the only teacher that teaches that grade level. So you have rights. You put it in for Mahmoud versus Taylor, and that teacher must comply. If that teacher doesn't comply, call Brad Dacus right away.
Good answer.
But have that opt-out available. Also, it was 5th grade, right? Was it 5th grade?
9-year-old.
A 9-year-old. I don't know it.
More like
maybe
fourth
or
grade,
fifth.
probably.
But I do think parents also need to know that the Mahmoud versus Taylor also applies to surveys. And kids start getting the California Healthy Kids surveys, 5th grade, 7th grade, 11th grade. 10th, I think, also. But they're asking specifically about their gender identity. They're asking specifically about their sexual orientation. Okay, so this also applies. And
So it's not just
know.
about how much milk do you drink. No.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure it started out that way, but okay. Excellent point. Here's Brenda. The book you mentioned is deeply concerning. What other commonly used books should parents be aware of to help prepare their children for LGBT ideology they may encounter at school?
There's so many.
I know we
Yeah.
at Pacific Justice Institute on our website, one of our projects was actually to identify, toxic books, but we also have books that are positive, proactive, pro-family, pro-faith kind of books for children at all grade levels that can be put into the school libraries, and we give information on how to put that proactive, positive books into the school library. So that's on the positive side. But what about, how can parents know about all that's out there? What do they do? How do they find it?
Yeah, how do they find it? Use the website takebacktheclassroom.com. I think
Okay.
it's .com, or is it .org?
Well,
I think it's .com.
Try both.
Yeah.
Okay.
Take back the classroom. What you do is you put in your state that you're coming from, put in the name of your school district, and then on that school district, every school will come up in that school district. It'll say how many books, either sexually explicit or gender ideology types of books that would possibly go against Mahmoud versus Taylor. And then a lot of them have excerpts. You can go to the excerpts, so you don't have to read the entire book. You can just have excerpts that see how that conflicts with your religious beliefs. And now my understanding, though, is Mahmoud versus Taylor doesn't actually apply to library books. That's what I was told.
Yeah.
Because a kid can go in and check out what they want, and that.
Yeah. My understanding is that it applies to material that is given to the books, or given to the child, presented to the child. So I would say that school districts need to have their libraries put on notice. So if parents give an opt-out form and say, I do not want my child exposed to this, that would arguably apply to the library, saying these books, these types of books are not to be given to the child. That little library is still a part of the public school and a part of the learning process. So we would argue that would include that. Otherwise, it'd be sort of, really not respecting the rights of parents if they say, no, you can't be given it this way, but a child can be provided it this way, and that would be very problematic. I can see a teacher saying, yeah, I can't give you access to this material because your parents said this, but here's how you can get it. Go to the library, you'll find the second shelf on the right. So
I do know that resource, takebacktheclassroom.com, is excellent. I use it as a school board member. I tell other school board members to use it, and it also has on that website how to challenge books. So
Excellent.
I do want to just show maybe a couple more real
Sure,
quick,
go
because
ahead.
these are common books that you'll find in the schools. This one, and a lot of times they look so cute. It feels good to be yourself, but yet inside the book, and let me just read one of the pages here, and it says, you might feel like you're a boy, you might feel like you're a girl, you might feel like you're both boy and girl, or like neither. You might feel like your gender changes from day to day or year to year. So this is what they're teaching in these types of books, and there's many books just like this.
lies.
But takebacktheclassroom.com is the greatest
No, that's
resource.
That's really good. Also, I know we've talked a lot about students and parents, but there are teachers out there probably watching this right now, and you're saying, hey, what do I do? You're a Christian teacher, you're up against a wall. You have a lot of rights under Title VII. We defend teachers. In fact, we're defending a lot of teachers right now in New Jersey, where the teachers were ordered by the Attorney General that they not only have to use pronouns that they don't agree with regard to children, but if parents ask about it, they need to hide it from the parents. Mm-hmm. You don't have to. You have rights under Title VII. We're here to protect you and defend you. Please let us know if we can help you at any time. Next question, what can I do when public schools conduct Islam-related activities such as mosque visiting, providing students with Muslim head coverings, or distributing Qurans without notifying parents? What say you guys?
That's good for Eric.
Well, that would be a violation of, you're actually getting them to involved in a worship environment. It's not just teaching about Islam, which is part of a curriculum. It's actually immersing them in a religious environment.
And that's often what we found happens in California. It's usually in 7th grade, and they're using the materials there. And we've caught them sometimes having the children chant, "Hail be to Allah, Lord of creation," to have them get on the floor like they're praying, to engage in the dress, and all these kinds of things. So instead of just teaching about religion objectively, they're actually facilitating participation with Islam. Yes. And people say, well, what's going to happen? What's going to happen with that? Well, there was an American who went to fight for the Muslims in the Afghan war on the other side for the Muslims. And it was interesting. I did my homework on him. And I thought, I wonder if he was actually taught in California. He came out of Washington State, but I wonder if he was actually in California. Turns out in 7th grade, I found out he was in Marin County, California, using the Across the Centuries textbook, which had this euphoric paradise kind of teaching about Islam being so wonderful and so peaceful and so respecting of people. And I thought that's where the seed was probably planted. And so that's a very good question. And I
might want to just add
Please.
on, because I was a 6th grade teacher, and in 6th grade you have to teach about the different religions. And my advice to this parent would be, okay, if they're taking a field trip to the mosque, are they also taking a field trip to the temple, the Jewish temple? Are they taking a field trip to the Catholic Church, to the Christian Church, the Protestant Church? You have to be fair so that there's a line. Are you proselytizing? Are you advocating for a certain faith? Or are you teaching about? And I think that's the way you can show equity in that.
And by the way, on that note, one of the things our team does is we research every state's academic standards, looking for where the Bible, Christianity, and religious freedom are promoted. In California, every 6th grader is supposed to know the gospel. This is the California academic standards. It's when they study the Roman Empire and the birth of Christianity, here's what it says. Students are to note the origins of Christianity in the Jewish messianic prophecies, the life and teachings of Jesus of Nazareth as described in the New Testament, and how St. Paul the Apostle helped define and spread Christian beliefs. And then it puts in parentheses, for example, belief in the Trinity, resurrection, and salvation. There are so many teachers who don't even know that's in the standard. And if it's not in the textbook, they just don't teach it. In Massachusetts, in 2017, they added from kindergarten through high school all the Bible stories they recommend students learn, from Adam and Eve all the way down to the teachings of Jesus. And when it comes to the Sermon on the Mount and the 10 Commandments, the Massachusetts Department of Education has an online link to a Bible that you can use in the classroom.
Wow.
Yeah,
So there's so many hidden gems.
There are. I was just the year I testified in the state of Texas for the State Board of Education, the Board of Trustees, they call it. I was there for almost 3 days, and I testified on the constitutionality of what you're talking about, as well as other things that they're bringing in, as well as a policy to take out Sharia law completely, because it's confusing, it's contrary to the Constitution, et cetera. But it was very productive. And, Texas, 2 out of 3 of their members on their State Board of Education are solid, level-headed. They get what quality education is all about. But even in the state of Texas, you're going to have school districts. Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, perhaps, or maybe some small ones that are going to try to ignore it. Are going to try not to teach it. So that's where parents come in to find out what's required. And then to find out, are you teaching this? I understand this is state law in a nice, friendly way, but I think that's a great...
Do you think, Brad, with this parent asking this question, is there an ed code, or maybe the parent can go to ChatGPT and find the ed code? If the teacher is only, teaching Muslim and having field trips for this particular faith, but not others, then what is the ed code that teacher can, that parent can, go to the principal or the teacher?
And I would love to help them with that. I don't have it memorized.
Well, they could go to ChatGPT.
They go to ChatGPT, but also I know that last I checked is that they teach, as far as history of Christianity is in 6th grade.
Right.
And as far as that goes. And then in 7th grade, at least how it used to be, that's where they teach Islam as far as history and stuff like that. And they may have changed it, since I've looked at it. But But I do encourage parents do have a right, bottom line, to opt their child out of that field trip. And any of the teaching and curriculum instruction about Islam, they can opt their child out of that. They must be reasonably accommodated. Sometimes they'll say, well, yeah, we'll accommodate your child. They're going to sit in a library and they're going to do a 20-page book report on da-da-da-da-da while other kids are on a field trip. Well, that's punitive. That's not a reasonable accommodation. That's punishing a child.
Right.
So those are some of the things that parents could do. We're going to move on because two more. Okay. As a parent, can I opt my kids out of going to their school's library? There is a risk that they'll be exposed to the perverse displays and posters there. I would contend yes. I believe that, and we would defend that. Once again, Marbury versus Taylor is still, the ink's still wet, relatively speaking, from a historical perspective. But we would be more than happy to make that point and argue that case, moving forward. What can Christian kids do during school if their teacher is mocking the idea of a God? We have that in universities, but sometimes we also have that in our school classrooms, don't we?
Yes.
You can't do that.
No.
Yeah.
They cannot.
Actually, no, they cannot.
They can't
denigrate any particular religion.
Any religious beliefs. I remember when I was in third grade in California schools, and I was a new Christian, and Mrs. Kurtz was teaching about evolution and that this just all happened this way and no God, just what it was. I took things into my own hands and I told all the students, Mrs. Kurtz is of the devil and she is preaching what she's saying is evil and of the devil. Don't listen to her. Don't believe what she says. It's all lies. I think I got back to Mrs. Kurtz and she started treating me really nicely. But I was a little zealot early on.
You did start young. I would like to address that parent and say you have rights. You can fill out a uniform complaint that can be found on your district's website. And I would very highly suggest you do this. Uniform complaints are very powerful. And just like race is protected, so is religion. So
That's right.
If that child in your class, your daughter or son, who felt personally discriminated against, harassed because of that teacher's comments against their religious affiliation, that can actually be considered a harassment by that teacher. And the harassment repercussions in the state of California are huge. They can not only sue the district, but they can sue the teacher personally. And I would call Brad Dacus on that as well.
Yes.
Here's the first step I would recommend for a parent if they call me about that. I would say go to the teacher, the first thing, and we call it the help me understand strategy. Sometimes kids will come home and say something and it's not really accurate. And so you say, help me understand. My daughter came home and she said this, that, and this. And you're really asking, you really want to understand, what the teacher might have said. And then you would say, in some way, you try to agree, hey, I appreciate that you are trying to help expose students to a variety of views on things, but have you considered actually what you said was denigrating, was harassing, was minimizing our family's faith? And we've had teachers who, when the parent does that, go, I never thought about it that way. I'm sorry. Yeah. I won't do that. But if the teacher says, no, that didn't happen, well, then you can go to the principal. And there, the opening statement should be, I thought I should alert you to a potentially embarrassing problem. Because now you're a friend of the school, a friend of the principal. You don't want him to be embarrassed. He probably doesn't know the teacher's doing this. Let him know about it.
Yeah.
And so then you work it up the line. If he doesn't pay attention, then you start going to the district and various
I need to be
threats
much more diplomatic like Eric.
I love that approach, though. I hope people really take note of that because,
But I also think it depends on the age of the child. The younger the child, the more, I believe, aggressive you have to be sometimes because we are protecting. The older the child, they can usually, discern, hopefully, for themselves as well and advocate for themselves sometimes too. But, the younger they are very pliable and wet cement.
Yeah, very, very much so. Does PGI defend teachers? I'm asking on behalf of a relative who teaches in a New Jersey public school. And of course, the answer is yes. And in fact, folks, we may actually be already representing that teacher, and depends on what it's about. But we're already taking on the Attorney General of New Jersey. So, yes, please contact us. We have a fantastic office there in Trenton, New Jersey. Karen White, she is a bulldog. She's fantastic and has an expertise in educational law, and herself served as legal counsel to a school board and actually served on a school board also. So we've got high expertise there in New Jersey.
Tell her to move to California. We need a
Yeah.
lawyer like that.
Well, here's the good news. We've got 8 attorneys and 5 offices here in California, up and down the state. And we have more
That's great.
cases, more offices than any other comparable legal organization. I don't say that to
Wow.
brag. God raised it up, but I want people to know we're here no matter where they are in the United States. We're here to serve them. But California definitely keeps us busy, as does New York and some of these other states in particular. And I want to encourage that. Also, there's
Yeah.
other wonderful ministries to be a part of. In our book, we talk about different youth ministries to be involved in, like decisionpoint.org and others that are out there evangelizing public schools. And your website, once again, is your Gateways to Better Education, your website,
GoGateways.org.
gogateways.org, and
BrendaForKids.com with the number 4.
BrendaForKids.com.org. And also, folks, I want to encourage you once again to hit like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's pji.org. So hit like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have any questions, please call us at 916-857-6900. We at Pacific Justice Institute are here for you 24/7. So, folks, remember this. No matter how great the challenge, no matter how great the struggle, always, always keep the faith.